DroneTalks is an online platform to spread ideas and to educate in the drone ecosystem. At DroneTalks, we discuss technology, regulatory, business, and ecosystem topics openly with industry leaders to enable and foster innovation for a better future.
Co-founder and CEO of DroneTalks, the educational platform, and I have a love project called Women Behind the Drone Revolution. And the love project aims to invite industry leaders, female industry leaders from the drone industry, to talk about important topics close to my heart, such as diversity, career path, their work in the drone ecosystem, and a lot more. So today, in collaboration with the Commercial UAV Show, we have the panel discussion. I would like to introduce my guest today. Maybe I start with Okelma here from Zipline. Hi, Okelma.
Thank you, Esther. I really appreciate being here and getting to chat with all of you today. So my name is Akoma, and I am coming to you from Zipline International. Zipline is a commercial drone delivery company, and we've done over 380,000 commercial deliveries worldwide. And I head our aviation regulatory affairs team, which means that I work closely with our CAA counterparts on aviation regulatory approvals, strategy, policy, and compliance matters.
Fantastic, thank you so much. The next is Zahra from SkyGrid.
Hi everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here and talk to everyone here. I'm Zara, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at SkyGrid, which is a joint venture between the Boeing company and Spark Cognition. And we're working to enable drones into the global airspace safely and securely. At SkyGrid, I oversee a number of functions. I wear a number of hats. The strategic direction of the product, I'm responsible for that. Business development and day-to-day operations. I've been in the drone industry for around 4 or 5 years now, and before that I have a background in tech and strategy. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Zahra. The next is Candice from UPS Flight Forward.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Candice McHarg, and I am the UAS Maintenance Controller for UPS Flight Forward. And basically, I oversee our UAS technicians who own repairman certificates. I am a certified A&P mechanic, and I also oversee our parts and tooling calibration program. I work with Matternet, which is the M2 drone, and currently in the liaison between them and our technicians on site in North Carolina and Florida. As you know, we fly the M2 drone at Wake Forest in North Carolina, and then also at CVS in Florida. And my background, been with UPS Flight Forward for 3 years. Prior to that, I was at UPS Airlines for 11 years, and I worked various roles. And then I started my career in GA, so thank you.
Thank you, and last but not least, Abigail from FAA.
Hi, everybody. I'm Abby. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the UAS Integration Office at FAA, which means we're the front door for this industry to get flying safely in the skies. Safety is our North Star. I've been with Federal Service for 31 and a half years. Did everything from being an air traffic controller, which is a very non-traditional female job, to digitizing all of the aeronautical information and charts for our country, which has been a big enabler in this country for the drone industry. I've been with this office for about 6 months, and I am so excited to be in this space. What an opportunity we have to change aviation for everyone, not just the few.
Thank you, thank you. So my first question is why drones? And I think, initially aviation is a male-driven environment, and we have in leadership positions, especially very little females in aviation. And but in the drone industry, I think it's changing. I'm very positive about the drone industry. So why drones? Maybe for Zahra, if you could share your thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually one of the 4 people who started SkyGrid. So I started working with drones at Spark Cognition, which is one of our joint venture partners. And when we started working with the technology, and I'm a Part 107 pilot myself, we realized kind of the gaps that exist in the industry. So we needed a safe, secure system that was providing, situational awareness, deconfliction, flight planning, fleet management, everything in one platform, and that's kind of what SkyGrid does. And we envisioned a future that's not just some drones in the sky, but manned and unmanned drones coexisting. And that's kind of where we started working on a prototype. We pitched our idea to the Boeing company, which is the other partner that we have. And obviously they were pretty clear to understand the idea from the get-go. And we started working on the first business plan. I actually drafted that. Led the deal team to get the joint venture set up, and since then I've moved into SkyGrid, where we're working to make the vision a reality, and it's been a very exciting journey for sure.
Amazing. And Abigail, I know you had an enormous experience in aviation, in FAA. So a few months ago, you started to work on drones. Like, what made you realize now you want to work on drones, and that's the initiative what you took?
Well, a couple things. So, number one, I mean, we're here, look at this. It's so amazing. And the opportunities that drones, advanced air mobility provide to society are kind of overwhelming and frankly kind of seductive, right? Additionally, the executive director, Jay Merkel, who you all may know, he and I have been friends and colleagues and partnered at many different times, of course, across my career in innovation spaces. And so last summer when his deputy retired, he reached out to me and said, do you know anybody that has really good interpersonal skills, that likes people, likes to build teams, has conflict resolution ability and aviation experience? I said, are you recruiting me? And he said, yes. I was like, okay. So, and the rest is history.
Amazing. It's very impressive. Congratulations. So, okay, Oma, what made you move to the drone industry? I know you are a lawyer on paper, and you're leading the policy and regulatory initiatives of Zipline. So from being an aviation lawyer, how you shuffled to this industry?
Yeah, so my story is a little bit less intentional, probably. I was a lawyer, and I sort of fell into aviation finance, and I worked on a lot of large commercial aviation deals with big companies, American Airlines, Virgin Australia, British Airways. But what I was doing was I was really learning about aviation finance products that were well established. And I think I found that really exciting early in my career because it was something new. It was an industry that I understood. There were this was, right after the economic collapse in the US, and there was a lot of uncertainty about financial products. And I was like, I just want to do something that makes sense to me. So they're borrowing money so that they can lease aircraft. Like, I understand these two things. I don't want to get in any trouble working on products that I don't get. And so I did that for a while, but soon realized there wasn't that much room for innovation, and there wasn't that much room for creativity, and that just didn't suit me. And I got recruited out of, I was working on Wall Street at the time. I got recruited out of New York to go to Dallas and work for a helicopter company that was going through a large refinancing. So they were looking for a finance lawyer that could help restructure their entire global fleet. So that sounded like a really fun challenge for a young lawyer who didn't know what she was getting herself into. And so I went ahead and I took that role, and I learned a ton. And that's where I really learned about aviation, I think. That's where I learned about operations. I spent a ton of time on our maintenance floor. If you know anything about helicopters, they're only as valuable as how well they're maintained. And we had a Part 145, and so I worked closely with that team. And I think that's where I honed my skills as an aviation lawyer. But it was a 75-year-old company. Again, not that much room for aviation. I was often the only woman in the room, often the only person of color in the room. I was well respected. I got a lot of great opportunities, but it never felt like I was ever going to fit in. And I actually ended up leaving that role because I was going to get promoted. And as part of that promotion, I was going to have to start going to leadership retreats that were on this ranch. And it was going to be me and like 8 middle-aged white men on a ranch for 4 days drinking whiskey.
Yikes.
And like shooting guns. And I was like, at that time I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old at home. You couldn't pay me enough money for that opportunity. And so I pulled the ripcord, and I actually which now everyone thinks is amazing, I actually moved my whole family to Costa Rica. And I was going to take a year off. I was like, I clearly am in the wrong industry. Like, aviation is not for me. I don't fit in aviation. There are not enough women. They don't value my creativity. I'm smart enough to do something else. So I left. I was like, done. 3 months later, I get a call from the general counsel at Zipline. And he was like, we're looking to bring aviation professionals onto our team. We think the type of aviation lawyer that would move to Costa Rica has just the right risk tolerance for us. And so that's what I mean when I say it wasn't intentional. And I really just sort of followed my interest and tried to be really good at whatever I was doing and trusted myself to know where I could really have an impact. And so my dad always jokes, are you getting worse? Are you getting better? Because the aircraft have gotten so very small. But I'm just so much happier in the role I'm in today.
I think it's a fantastic message. And, personally, I left all my jobs because I felt I didn't fit, And this drove me to set up my own company. And now, they always said I don't fit to the box. And today I have a company with 8 people, because I didn't fit in that box, And I think this is a good message. If you don't fit, the problem is not necessarily you, Yeah, so maybe Candice, what experience you have? What's your career path? Which moved to you, the UPS,
Well, I worked for UPS Airlines prior, and I did various line maintenance supervisor, and then I worked in maintenance control for 3 years prior to UPS Flight Forward. And maintenance control, you're working all kinds of angles. You're working with air traffic or flight dispatchers, contingency. So basically, we're liaison with all of our manufacturers and our maintenance issues that come up on our aircraft. And so with that expertise, back in 2019, when we started UPS Flight Forward, they were looking for that aviation experience and that background. And they asked me if I would like to be a part of UPS Flight Forward. We're starting up our drone airline, and we need a maintenance controller. And I thought, you know what, this is great. I never thought, 20 years ago when I went to AMP school that I would be going and working with drones. And, this is a great way to lead the future and the next generation of aviation. And I was really excited to be a part of this opportunity. And so I decided to jump on it. And I haven't looked back since. I've learned a lot, had a lot of challenges, of course, with rules and regulations, but it's been fun, and that's kind of how it came to me, is just from the background of 121 World with UPS Airlines. So thank you.
Thank you. So, regarding diversity in the industry, I'm a board member of the Swiss Drone Industry Association. I always tell this story when I'm on a stage and I'm the only woman, in the board, and I always raise to my peers, hey, why there is no any other woman in the board? And they say there is no woman in the industry. That's the answer what I always get everywhere. I want to have women, but I cannot hire. I don't find a talented woman. I am a male CEO. I am very happy to hire women, but there is no woman. That's what they always tell to me every single time when I challenge someone. And I always say to people, this industry is so big. We don't need only engineers, We need sales professionals, we need marketing professionals, we need business development, strategy people, right? So we don't only need engineers and aviation background people. Nothing wrong with aviation background, and I love it, and it's fantastic. But there is another part where people have a lot of knowledge and they can bring it to this new innovative industry and mix the two together. We can create something amazing. So Abigail, I guess you hired already a lot of stuff during your career. What do you feel, or what's your opinion about why there is very little women in the industry, and how can we encourage as companies or directors or CEOs to have people apply to rules, to enter into the industry, or what's your experience about this, Abigail? Or
Well, so when we all were together on Zoom, separately together on Zoom last week, talking, I brought up the point that when I started as an air traffic controller, there were 17% women. That was 1991, so many of you out here in the audience were not born. I understand. But flash forward to 2022, and guess how many air traffic controllers are women? 17%. The dial did not move at all. How many commercial airline pilots are women? 6%. How many are mechanics? 2 to 3. Want to know why? Wait, I see women out here. There are women in the industry. But here's some language. I brought my little handy-dandy iPad up because I want to read some words to you. And this is what I would tell every CEO that says there aren't women, because you need women in this innovation space, because there's talent and there's different ideas for how to innovate that women have experience with because we're women. So here's some masculine words that are put in job announcements that cause generally 47% decrease in women applying for jobs. Here are the words: strong, lead, and this includes leaders, analysis, and includes analyze and analytical, individual, decisions, driven, competitive, expert, objectives, and principles. Those are turn-offs to women. Here are some turn-on words for women that don't turn off men. And so they become inclusive language so you can really recruit the best people. Here are these 10 words: support, share, responsible, understand or understanding, together, committed, interpersonal, feel, collaborate or collaboration, and connect. So this is also true for any of you that are educators. When you're thinking about language for courses that you're offering, especially in science, you need to think about how you're advertising those. For an example, Harvey Mudd College wanted to increase the number of women that were in computer science degrees. So that they changed the course name. Like, you're gonna love this. First, the course was called Introduction to Programming in Java. Meh. They changed it to Creative Approaches to Problem Solving in Science and Engineering using Python. It increased the female computer science degree majors by changing names like that from 10% to 40% women in computer science without decreasing male participation. And so I say the women are there. Find language to connect to bring the powerhouse to your industry. I'll just also say this, since I have a mic. The graduating class of 2022, these are high school students. The drone industry alone needed 1.5% this year of that entire graduating class. 55,000 people in the United States were needed that graduated high school this year in the industry. Next year, it grows to 2.3% of the industry, or 88,000. You better find the women, because there just aren't enough other people out there, and women bring something different that, to balance out your workforce. Thanks.
Abigail, I cannot relate more, but I always tell to everyone, diversity is not a favor, what you do to me. You do to your own business a favor, because you're going to have better revenue, you're going to have better business, because you want to sell the product to everyone. You want to sell your product to men and women. So how you only listen half of them, create a product what half of them going to use. You want to sell to both, you need to listen to both, and you're going to make double revenue, right?
Yeah, and Eszter, it's interesting because we have this Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. It used to be called the Drone Advisory Committee, but we also wanted to make sure that the space was more inclusive for the advanced air mobility vehicles to feel like a part of it. One of the taskings that we gave the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee was to come up with inclusive language words. We had been reticent to do that, but for 2 years, different leaders in this space said, you've got to task us with this, because the lack of diversity is killing our business. As a result of that, and that's really how Jay and I really realized that we needed to be a work brother and sister pair before we both left and retired. So he gave me the work to come up in the policy shop with it. Within 3 months, we had the administrator and the deputy administrator signing a statement saying that we will use inclusive language. we held a summit that was international. You can see it on our FAE YouTube video, and we have policies, internal documents to change all of our language in our HR announcements, in messaging, so we're using words like parent instead of mother and father, because we need every person that we have in the organization to stay and to actually be proud and be a brand manager for it, and you can't do it if everybody's not welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So Zehra, any other tip from your side to encourage women, entering to the industry?
Yeah, I think, so I actually started my career in gender policy in Pakistan. I was working for a USAID project. And so what we were trying to do was, thank you, we were trying to get more and more women into the energy sector there. And, it was a complete revamp, obviously, in Pakistan when we were doing that. But, I took that experience, and when we were setting up SkyGrid, we focused on two things. One was policy, as you mentioned, Abigail. We do that very intentionally in our job descriptions, from that to gender, to pay scales as well. Like, nobody at SkyGrid is paid different based on gender. There's no woman who's paid less. And so I think that's so important on a leadership level, because that's only something that you can instill in the company. And so, when we were setting up the HR department, we said it's really important that we have not only policy to get people inside the door, but also policy to make them stay. So raises, to pay scales, to other opportunities. Like, I just, became a mother, 2 years ago, and my husband works with me. We both work at the same place. And I've noticed a change that I have in kind of my responsibilities, or my, the flexibility that I probably need than he does. So flexibility for new women, for new mothers. So that's really critical on a policy level. But something that, you also mentioned about culture. I think that's the thing that's unsaid in a way, but it's so critical. So company retreats, how are those set up? When everyone's getting together, is it just a late night happy hour? That makes such a big difference. So we've been really intentional about these things, and we've been really intentional that right now we're obviously a small company, that we make sure that our culture stays that way, but we made a really strong effort to make sure that as we grow, that's something that we're really conscious of, because I think both these things combined are what's going to result in more women not only coming into the industry, but leadership positions as well. And the more women in leadership positions, I think, the more we can encourage others. Because I know I definitely learned from my mentors. My first manager was a woman. And so I learned so much. And I think, it's crucial for all of us to do that in our own individual organizations.
Okay, can I tell you more? I think the supporting network is also what is really, really needed. And we have this new industry, and we're just creating another industry, right? So we don't have this reality yet. So that's our responsibility to create it as well. And network on this, what your experience, or what makes a woman take those roles? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'd actually go back to the school systems and education right now, because a lot of STEM needs to happen in our education system. There's a lot of schools that they don't offer those programs to the students, and there's actually studies out there. You need to start this at age 10, so at a very young age. So I actually part of a few different organizations, such as Women in Aviation and Association for Women in Aviation. And what I've been doing is going out, and we've got little parrot drones, and we set up a Girls in Aviation Day for kids 8 to 17. But my 5-year-old, she loves it, so I take her. And I just love getting girls involved at this age, because I think that's where, they're the next future of this generation. Like, we're just starting the drones. So we need to build the next generation, and that's really where it begins. And so that's what I would say. We need to look forward to that.
Amazing. So, Okama, this question and another as well, maybe mix it too. So I see a lot of women in the audience, and I'm just wondering, what's your advice to them to progress in their career in the drone field? You know, what would you tell? What's the good strategy? Because you know, we cannot say, hey, they are all a man, and I don't have a chance, and I just sit and wait. This is definitely not the way. We all know we all need to break through our way, and I do believe there is no blame on a man. This whole panel is not about blaming anyone. I don't think they just understand the problem or can relate to it because they don't live it, It's like I never can imagine how it's to be disabled. I can relate, but I'm not living in it, right? So, okay, Emma, any suggestion for younger, or not even younger, anyone who wants to progress in the career in the drone field?
So, yes, I will get to the advice, but I want to speak to some of the things you said a little bit because I think that it's really important that we recognize that diversity and inclusion, it's not a women's problem, right? It's an everyone's problem. And it does impact men, and men should care about it. And we hear a lot more about intersectionality, and I think that matters. And at Zipline, it's not just about do we have people who look different, but it's do we have people who think different throughout the organization. And what concerns me is when I see organizations where women are siloed into certain types of roles, right? And if you have 50% women and 50% men, but all the men's are leads and all the women's are secretaries, that's not diversity. Likewise, if you have a leadership team that looks diverse, but everybody went to Harvard, that's not diversity. And so when we talk about diversity and we talk about inclusion, it's really about knowing your value and what you bring. And it isn't about trying to mimic that image of what a leader looks like. It's not about trying to mimic that image of what a professional person looks like. I will wear sneakers on stage because this is what a professional looks like. And I think that when you understand your value, then you can explain why your diversity brings value.
I cannot agree more. It's amazing. I have no words. Anyone else want to comment on this?
I mean, that's right. And I think the other part that, if we get into advice is, it's our job, everybody, it's our job to be inclusive, to create a space where people can be who they are. You be you. But if you're going to say that as a leader, you've got to walk, you got to lean into it, and you got to go, love the sneaks, right? Because she's bringing something different, and she's bringing her authentic self to work, which is going to result in so much more power and innovation, and this space needs that freedom. But our job is to create psychological safety so that everybody feels like they can be who they are authentically, and that's going to drive up profitability. We're government, we don't do profit, but we do really closely look at our employee engagement numbers, and I obsess on those metrics, and think about ways to shout out people who are doing a good job and see people, because when they're being seen, it matters. But that's that inclusion piece. You can hire these people, but if they're not invited to dance, they're going to leave.
If they're passionate enough about their job, or they're going to contribute the way they contribute. And especially, I think the drone industry is such a good example. We're so small, we're just starting off. We need people here who are passionate about the work they do, because that's what's going to keep you here. It's not going to be, most of the companies are smaller. We don't have really fat checks, right? We don't have, we have equal ones, but we don't, it's not going to be a list of really long benefits about how passionate you are about the industry. And only if you're truly yourself, as Abigail said, or you're, allowed to be whoever you are and you're allowed to be diverse, is when you're giving that 100% to the company. So it's just the benefit of the company, really, in the end.
Yeah, I think it's worth adding that you will often find mentorship and sponsorship in unexpected places. it isn't always going to be, I mean, I think you'll find a lot of partnership and collaboration within women's associations, women's groups, and, I love having Abby as a stakeholder and someone I get to work with. But candidly, one of the people who very early in my career in the drone industry was a sponsor of mine was Jay Merkel, right? I was new to the career, to the industry. I was an new entrant, and he recommended me to lead one of the subcommittees on the BVLOS ARC. And that put me in a position where I got to better understand the industry, represent my company, and really be at the front of this industry. And without his support, which, I would not have known would have come from that place, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think that some of us are not lucky enough to have people who look like us in positions of leadership to speak on our behalf. And so you just have to find people who do care about these issues and who care about the value you bring, who are willing to extend some of the credibility that they have and the goodwill that they have. And they may not look like you and they may not come from the same background as you, but they care about the things that you care about, and that's why they'll speak up on your behalf when you're not in the room.
I cannot agree more. And another message, I think, don't give up. I know it's maybe a kind of a generic message, but if the first person not going to help you, the second going to help. If the second not, the third going to help. If the third not, the fourth. And this is my experience, but you need to really grow a thin skin on your face, and just, get the next slap and the next and the next and the next, because one point is going to succeed, And I think that's what women need to also understand, and I think we should develop this self-confidence somehow. Because, I was ashamed a lot of time. I'm not sure I see the audience, but, I'm ashamed to breastfeeding my kid here in the corridor. I ashamed of a lot of things. And I know I'm not supposed to, but sometimes inside me, I'm still ashamed, And I think that's when you just need to swallow and say, okay, I know, and I just go to the next, to the next, to the next. And I'm not sure if you ever felt like this, but me as a woman, I felt a lot of time I'm ashamed of something, and I know I'm not supposed to, but I do.
I think you're totally right, Esther. I think I think one of the issues that women just have to face in the industry, or just in any career, is that we just have to try harder than our male counterparts to be heard, to be assertive, to be recognized. And I think I feel like everyone must have their own story, but that's something that I went through. I started off like, a relatively more shy person, I would say, or a timid person. And in a room, sometimes you really have to command people to listen to you. And more so as women. I've had people who I've interviewed who are, if I'm on a panel, are not listening to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm your hiring manager. So it's a cultural thing. And he's, not answering to me. I think it's like a cultural thing. I don't even know if they do it intentionally, but I think you just have to push yourself more. You have to push the boundary a little more. And as you said pretty correctly, is find the right mentors, right? Because as I mentioned, early on, my manager was a woman. She really helped me. She was in the energy industry, really male-dominated. But then my CEO currently, Amir Hussain, whenever early on, I started working with him 8 years ago. Whenever I'd go to him for a question, he'd say, what do you think we should do? And, it kept on happening, and I don't even realize when he started, I started making my own decisions, because I knew if I go to him, he's just going to say, what do you want to do? So it just made me feel confident in my own abilities, and it was such a learning moment for me, not just as his employee, but as a manager myself, because now I do the same thing with my team. So I think it's really important for you to find mentors if you want to grow in the industry, find that network, but also be connected, put yourself out there, and push for the work and be your own advocate, because one of the things that happens is women often get pushed into taking on responsibilities of work that goes unrecognized. And Abigail was talking about this right before we get on the panel, but this is something that I've seen pretty closely to myself too, that you have to just advocate for the work that you're doing, because it might not be getting recognized. A really funny story, we had a client coming up, we had a demonstration, we had, the entire team was there, and we were setting up, and we have a few women engineers on our team who are superstars. And I noticed that naturally those women were the one who were helping the leadership team, come up and set up, whereas all the younger men were, out chit-chatting or doing something else. And I said to her, I said, I just want you to know that I see the work that you're doing, but, we have other people who can do this too. So I would say go do something that's more higher value add for you and would give you more recognition. Because I think that's something that just happens. I feel like Abigail wants to say something, yeah.
Oh, and Candace wants to say something, but I sum it up as, I don't bring the food. So ladies, stop bringing the food. You bring other value, and you bring a much higher value, so don't bring the food.
Well, I know, when I entered the industry, I was young, 20-year-old female coming in, and I had a bunch of white men that I was supervising, and, I always felt like I had to prove something to them. And, just take it upon yourself to learn as much as you can and trust and, say, I'm here to help you with whatever you need. And, just take it upon yourself to find somebody to help guide you through that, whatever career you end up choosing. It's just amazing the mentorship that you can find and those that are willing to really help guide you through that process. I know it's been inspirational for me to find my mentors and actually, be a mentor now. So it's been great, and, just keep going, and, sometimes don't take no for an answer. Like, keep doing what you're doing and prove to them that you can do it. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, and I would just add something, because we've talked about finding mentors, but be a mentor. Be a mentor. You have no idea what positive impact you can have on another person's life for something that's pretty straightforward and not a lot of investment in your time. You can really lift others. And so be generous with yourself.
Amazing. We're running out of time. So I want to open the floor for Q&A, and I really would like to have Q&A. So maybe if someone can give a microphone, because I need to keep mine. And in the meantime, if there are any question, yeah, there is one. Wow, amazing. I love her. She's the first brave one. You see, yeah.
All right, I got one that might be a doozy. So my name's Brittany Moore. I am a technical program manager at Primaire. And my question is, what is your best advice for dealing with conflict? Because I feel like a lot of times women can get slotted into a certain space. A lot of people dismiss you based on the way you deal with conflict in a way that men don't necessarily have to deal with. So what's your best advice for that? I want to hear facts here. Throw it at me.
One of the things that my manager used to say was, one, never write an email instantly when you're angry. Right. Take a breather, come back. And honestly, it's helped me so much in my life, but in my career. But the other thing is, I think one piece that you have to be, careful about is that you have to be yourself as well. So I think it's a fine line between being professional, but also being yourself. And I feel what really works for me, and I don't know if it's like really great advice, but is I usually say, okay, just give me a second. I usually go back, I take a breather, and then I come back and I have a conversation. And I'm a passionate person, so it's about labeling us as being more emotional. Sure, go for it. But at the same time, my emotion gets you what it gets the company, right? It gets the passion, and it gets you innovation, and I'm giving my 100%, and that's what matters.
So my best advice to you is, well, conflict's there. Conflict is what gets us up in the morning. And it's there. It's not a bad or good thing. It just is. So if you find yourself having an amygdala hijack and you're going to your brainstem, take a little breather. If you can stay calm enough in the moment, the most disarming thing that you can do when you disagree with someone is to say, gosh, I see it differently. Could you tell me more about why you feel that way? And let the person just exhaust themselves. It works because they will feel heard and will be more open to hearing you.
Abby might be a little bit nicer than me.
I doubt it.
So I mean, I think I tend to be pretty direct, and I tend to not coddle people. I like to have a lot of grace. Candidly, most people who work with me have never worked with a black woman. Do you know, like, they've worked with people who are like them, and I just want to make very clear what I tolerate and I don't tolerate in terms of behavior. And if there is a substantive conflict, let us talk about the substantive conflict. If there is an emotional conflict, let us talk about that. And I will be very open to say, it seems like you're getting really worked up right now. I don't feel comfortable having this conversation this way. Happy to talk to you about it later, right? And this is just about the environment I want to work in and the type of culture I want to foster in my team. I like direct feedback. If I'm getting worked up and I'm making you uncomfortable, tell me. But I will also tell you if it feels like you're trying to use volume to make a substantive point.
And if I also take that, I think, they called me dramatic. They called me basically every names what you can imagine, behind my back, in front of my face, And the people who called me like that, they are not in the industry anymore. And I'm here in this stage with FAA, Zipline, Skygrid, and UPS, So, and she has now grocery store. I know that, and she was a lady, by the way. And my ex-boss said me also I'm not fitting, and she sent to me a coaching session because I apparently had behavior issues, in the multinational company where I worked. And she's again not working at all, and unemployed, and I think time pays off. This is what I want to tell. Maybe in that moment, that person, maybe you feel won, but 2 years later, you just go through your LinkedIn profile and scroll and say, hey, really, you have a grocery store? I mean, I'm on a stage, So I think I'm not sure if you had something similar, but sometimes 1, 2, 3 years. And you see you succeeded, you just need to be strong that one moment, and maybe confront or not, But that I think. Any other question? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries. There is one there, Zipline, yeah.
And she's a maintenance professional, so.
Woo, woo,
woo, woo, woo. I'm a leftover. I think what's important as a female is that we deal a lot with you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I'm very, I'm dichotomous because I'm very passionate about what I do, which for me is safety. That's my thing. But I'm also like robotic in anything else and just present the facts. And I want to know how the panel deals with the damned if you do, damned if you don't. We're soft or we're emotional. It's something we deal with every day.
So you may not have picked up on this, but I'm not shy. And I don't know how many of you have ever done the Clifton Strength Finders. So in my top 5 are activator. So I'm like very impatient. I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. I've got woo, which is winning over others. The charming cocktail party person. And then ideation, so it's popcorn of the brain. And then I have this one called command, which for men is leadership and for women is, well, you know that word. And so it's been really, it's been a really interesting experience for me, being in leadership over the last 20 years, to navigate that balance of bringing, I rock pink almost every day because I'm representing women, right? And I'm also representing the LGBTQ plus community that's often minimized and underserved. So this is my reminder that all are welcome, including me. And so I have kind of gotten over worrying about how I fit in. I used to worry about it, but look, I'm 55 years old. I just don't care. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to do what I can to create an environment where all are welcome. And I'm deeply committed to it. So what I would say is, stop worrying about whether you're damned or you're do, damn it. Just do it.
I completely agree with Abigail. You know, people have said, oh, you're really assertive. I'm like, yeah, I'm determined. People have said, oh, you know, you're really emotional. Yeah, I'm passionate. You know, so it's all about like making sure, like, you know, there are 5 different ways to say a word. I think we get labeled more because we're women. And so it's just really up to you to you know, I think everyone should communicate that, because I think that's been one of the biggest things that I felt is that, you know, you have to be the one who has to go ask for a raise. You know, women don't do that. We see that so much because I'm also responsible for HR. I see men negotiating salaries so much more than women do. Negotiate your salary, right? And when you're being labeled as something, make sure you show them the other piece. But at some point, you just have to give up and say, hey, this is what it is, you know. Stop caring about what everyone else is saying, but be an advocate for yourself.
You know, I think that a lot of it has to do with, you know, talking to your team and listening and take action as necessary. Because, you know, in the end, we're here for one thing, right? We're paving the way of the next generation for the next aviation drone delivery. And, you know, sometimes it's hard because everyone has different perspectives on different views. We come from different cultures, but in the end, we all have one goal, right? And so just take that into consideration and, you know, if you need to, take a step back and then come back to the table with whatever, you know, the issue might be.
We obviously work together. Becky was one of the first women that I got the pleasure of hiring on our ops team. We were very excited to find her. We believe there are good women out there, and we were excited to add her to the team. I think that as women, I think what you're speaking to partly is that there's constantly this desire to put us into a box. Like, because she's a woman, she'll be really good at communicating, so let's put her into these communication things. Or because she's not communicating well, like she doesn't represent women well. And there's all these weird expectations. And so I think as women, when we show up in the workplace, we have an opportunity to educate not just men, but each other about what it means to show up as a woman in the workplace. And so I think this is sort of my mantra, you know, just stop deleting exclamation points if you want to put exclamation points. Like, if you don't want to use exclamation points, you don't have to. But, like, just be who you are, do your job really well, and just demonstrate that value. And I think then the boxes sort of start to fall away, and the value is really what's left.
No, I agree. And, you know, I recently just read this book, you know, the Michelle Obama book. I'm not sure who read or not. Anyway, I just read now. And it said, like, hey, when I became a first lady, I went to a dinner with all my husband's, you know, high level of colleagues, you know, and I thought I'm going to be the dumbest in the room. And, you know, and obviously you think that because it's everyone, you know, Barack's right hands. And she realized in 10 minutes probably she's the smartest in the room. And she was, and you know, I feel a lot of time like this. We go with the preconception. We assume things, right? And I think we put ourselves down because we assume things as a woman. And I think exactly we don't need to assume. We need to be confident. But it's very hard. You know, I tell you now, be confident. It doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to be confident, right? I think it takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work and a million difficult situations until, like, okay, I build up that confidence. But just to say, hey, be confident, it's not working like this. So you need to go through a lot of difficult situations and deal with it. And one point is just going to be like, okay, now I can do it. Yeah, any other question? Yes, there is one there from the organizer team. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Laura from Commercial UAV Expo. Thank you all so much for being here. I also wanted to note that the Commercial UAV Expo team is almost entirely female-led. So I'm not sure that everyone knows that, and we're pretty proud of that fact. Thanks. There's a bunch of us in the back there, yeah. But I know you spoke to the importance of finding a mentor, and I know that sometimes mentorship is something that people just fall into naturally. But I was wondering for people, and especially some of the newer people in the industry, like if you see someone who who's higher up or a president that you really want that like to have that mentorship from, do you have any advice on like how to reach out to like obtain that? Like what is the ask? Or if you could maybe describe like how you fell into the mentorships that you found. Thank you.
I would say LinkedIn is a really good tool for mentorship and networking here. If you find somebody here, hand out your business card and, don't be shy. Just ask like, hey, I'm just new into the industry. Like, do you mind? Can we connect? And just talk about topics that come up with each other. So I think, this is one of the great ways to find that mentorship is, expos like this.
I feel like the best thing it might be different for everyone, but for me is if someone just upright asks for it, says, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, because everyone's so busy that I feel like a direct ask is always the best way, and I've noticed that a lot of women in the industry want to help each other. I think that's something that the group is pretty passionate about. So ask for mentorship and say, I'm looking for a mentor in the drone industry. I just started off. Do you mind a 30-minute call, right? And I've noticed that a lot of people have responded to that personally for me as well. And then, have constant touch points. And it might be, different for the kind of level of mentorship that you need, but a 30-minute at lunch, a lot of people would be willing to give you that. And if you guys connect, it's going to be an ongoing relationship.
Can I add one more thing? Women in Drones is a great organization and tool. And we actually talked about mentorship program. So I'm not sure where that is and where that's going, but that might be a great tool for you all to reach out.
The only thing I would add is to just really know what you want from the mentorship, right? The mentor is only going to invest as much as you're invested. I think I get a lot of people who reach out, who want mentorship, and then they get on the call and they're like, and I'm like, well, what do you want? I'm like, what are your dreams? What are your goals? They're like, those are good questions. And I'm like, okay. And then I never hear from them again. And it's just like not a good use of my time. And it sort of discourages me from taking blind opportunities like that again. And, you don't want to bother people. You don't want to pester people. But you definitely want to be sort of intentional and invest in them so that they can invest in you. Because when I see people with that type of hunger and that type of like clarity, like clear-eyed approach, then I'm like, oh, this is somebody who is going to go somewhere and just needs a little bit of help to get there. But there's only so much I can do for somebody who just hasn't done that work on their own.
I agree. I've actually broken up with some mentees because we get on the call and it was like, oh, yeah, I'm just so unhappy. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? How can I help you think differently? And I don't know. All right, well, we're breaking up. But all that said, the other thing that I would just say is, I said it before, people are generally very generous with their time. If you're sincerely looking to work on your goals, oh my gosh, it's joyful to help someone. And the other part is you could, instead of having like a mentor, you can have lots of mentors that help you with different things. And so it's a small time investment for all these different people to help you or for you to help. Because, I have different mentors that I just tap into for advice on a particular thing. So think broadly about what that means and also be generous with your time.
I cannot agree more, and I think men and women both works. That's also a takeaway. So I think we need to close this panel. However, I really, really would love to go, but they told me I have 1 minute to close it. So I'm really thrilled. I think I'm even feeling like very special about this panel because I think it was a really fantastic panel. Thank you so much for the speakers. I think it was really unique. Thank you so much for being here with us. Always when I organize these panels, I have this, belly ache, no one gonna come. And I'm always like, oh my God, I organize a panel and no one gonna listen. And after you're all here and I'm like, oh, thanks God. So thanks for being here. And I think all of the speakers gonna be here. If you wanna talk to them after the panel, I think we will be here. Thank you so much.
Brought to you by DroneTalks Online, a platform designed to spread ideas and educate in the drone ecosystem.